What is up, Smash community? The Crimson Blur is back with a out of focus. It's been a long time. I really want to make more videos, and actually, I'm probably gonna do about 4 in a row. Just gonna take them all tonight. I have been sick for the last like 2 days, but I took my medicine. This is Sudafed. I don't know if the camera picked it up very well. It's been doing me good justice, so pretty happy. But I really want to put this video in particular out because I think this is one of the most important conversations that we can have right now, which is where are we at as a community? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And how can we amplify the strengths that we have right now? And how can we mitigate against the weaknesses that we see in our scene? I especially want to talk about it exactly now in November, 1 month away from Ultimate's release, because I think Smash Ultimate is going to have an overwhelming force over our community narrative, right? Right when it comes out, I mean, it already has had an overwhelming force of our narrative. You can't use Reddit right now, I bet. But right when it comes out, I think some of the decline that we saw this year will be forgotten, right? We will grow again with Ultimate's release and hopefully a new documentary, Sam Mox willing. And we'll forget that, the core problems that we face this year are still really going to be in the background after the new game hype goes away. So I want to talk about it right now, and I think it's really important. I've done a lot of thinking about it. In fact, I even prepared something for you all, and that is a PowerPoint. That's right. The Blur is having a TED Talk. It's going to be pretty sick. So I made a list, basically 10 strengths and 10 weaknesses. I tried to reduce it down to only 10. 10 things that I think Smash is doing the best right now, that's really making it stand out, and 10 things that it is doing quite poorly and I want to fix. So, okay, just right off the bat, let's go to strength number 1. These are in no particular order. They're all very important. But strength number 1, that would be high dollar per user. It's a lifestyle brand. So this might come as a shock to everybody that I'm putting this as a strength, because they're like, oh, Smasher's so broke, we don't have any money. What are you talking about? Why is there a dollar sign anywhere on the slide except in the weaknesses part? And the reason for that is because this is a critically underrated part about the Smash community. We spend a lot of money on our players in our community. We actually are super about it. And Smashers are willing to go to, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you're Captain Face Roll 15 locals a month, and drop bills at every single one, right? $20 a pop. If you compare that to other games, maybe free-to-play games have a hard time getting any user to spend $20 over the course of the year. Sure, there's some whales, but Smash in general, especially in comparison to FGC, spends a lot of money per user. So examples of this, Nesmod. As you guys know, there's a lot of controller guys in the community who have a little small business going, right? There's Nez, there was Typo in the past, Cardano in Europe, like all these guys who are helping people with controllers and things like that, with the boxes like hacks and so on, Smashbox. And this has turned into a real business for people. And the reason is because Smashers care so much about their controller that they will pay any price. Again, high dollar per user. They care so much. It's such a big part of their life that they're willing to spend money on it. Second, look at this. More apparel. This stuff, like, you guys, trust me. Smashers eat this up. Like, there's no reason Scar's face should sell anything. But it does. I can't explain it. Shout out to Jisoo for setting all that up. But I guarantee you, the FGC side of it is not selling as well as the Smash side of it. Not just because Jisoo's from Smash. It's just a general thing. You can talk to FGC people. Smashers buy stuff at an alarming rate, right? It's very hard for any other community, and I don't just include the FGC and Smash, to sell stuff like say on a Smash G shop, but the one community that can do it is Smash Brothers, that we will buy things that are related to our community. We're about it. Another great example of ways people support is look at this guy. I swear to you, I literally just opened up twitch.tv/mango and took the screenshot. I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't looking at the VODs. And this is what this guy was doing. This guy right here, this guy right here is the one that has the number that's really important down there. 6,000 subs. Guys, his average viewership is 1,200. Something like that. 1,200. To have 6,000 subs, that's nuts. That is nuts. No streamer. I don't know if there's a single streamer on Twitch that has a sub to average viewership ratio that Mango does. It's insane. And it's more representative of the fact that Smash players like really will support, when it comes down to it, because they're so passionate. Such a passionate community. Maybe niche, but they will support the things they love. Mango fans, everyone knows it. He's making a good career for himself as a streamer, and it comes because, not just that he's a consistent streamer, not just that he's good and he's an awesome content creator, but also because Smashers are willing to put down the dollars. And finally, this one I had to look up. I just thought it was funny. Just think about Smash Summit, right? People sell out, but think about how much money goes through that ecosystem every year, right? It's like 200K per average over the last few, something like that, for the Smash Summits. Sure, players sell out to make that number as high as possible, but it's still nuts, right? For just crowdfunding, when you consider how many people are in the community and how, what they're actually donating for. I think it's quite impressive. So again, lifestyle brand, people really identify with being part of the Smash community, and that's a big deal, right? It's a big deal. It's not something that they'll drop on the drop of a hat, right? Like you might see someone play League and then quit League, but for Smashers, you don't quit Smash Brothers. It's like literally a part of your life, and it becomes your entire friend circle. So yeah, this is what I consider one of the best strengths. So moving on, strength number 2. It's a global network. It's an open market. Okay, so what does that mean? That means if you, in all aspects, if you want to say West Balls hasn't gone worse, he's actually still good. Even if people are going to misinterpret it, you can. And you know what? You can make that content, and even though you're not famous, even though you're not from Riot or Blizzard or a pro player or anything, you can put your stuff out there, and people will watch it if it's good. It is genuinely an open community, and that's not just in terms of YouTube. I'm talking about TOing or just generally any community contribution. If the best advice I can give to someone who says, okay, what can we do to make Smash better, is what are you doing to make Smash better? Like, focus on yourself first, because truly individuals can make outsized differences in Smash Brothers more than any other esport, right? And so you just look around the world. You got this guy, Tantalus. You got all of these guys. You got Joe. By the way, congrats on the new venue. You got my boy Watch in Japan. You got Bear. You got Matt Zeb and Shi, the Shine Boys. Oh my God. Wait. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. So I got a little antsy there, but shouts to Ed from Europe. I didn't even include everybody, but the point is, look how awesome these people are, right? These people are such high quality individuals, are people who we have motivated and are willing to spend their time for almost no monetary gain, frankly, basically none, often to a negative monetary gain. They lose a lot of money. And they go out there and make it happen. That's awesome. That's crazy. And to stress this fact, like, how much money would it take for other companies to reproduce what we have, right? How valuable is this strength? And I think it's insanely valuable, right? For me, I think about it, I'm like, okay, so if Riot wanted to do this, right? Of course, LCS has this massive budget, plus $100 million budget to run it every year. Big budget. But realistically, if they want to do what we do, which is run thousands of locals and dozens of majors and activate in every city and have admin staff, production crews and all that, it would cost them more than the LCS total budget. I swear to you guys, it would cost them so much money. It would cost them, they would have to hire so much staff. But right now, we have free volunteers, we have passionate people, and they just go out and do it, right? They just go out and do it. And that's awesome. Maybe it wouldn't cost them more than the LCS total budget. But the point is, it would cost a lot of money. It would cost a lot of money to recreate our open ecosystem that we have right now. That competitive ecosystem that really drives things forward. I know, for my left-leaning viewers out there, they'll get a little annoyed by the term open market, but there is genuine benefits to competition as well. And I think that in Smash, you see that, right? So, of course, this is one of the things that makes Smash cool as heck. At any region you go to, there's just a panel of legends who help make things happen. Strength number 3, low cost of operations. This one can be argued as our best strength. This one is actually what makes the last one possible. Strength number 2, how are so many people able to make things happen on shoestring budgets? It's because shoestring budgets are actually possible. So you compare this to other esports, right? This is just this one picture of the Blizzard Arena production area, right? Just one picture. This is a lot of money. This picture, it represents a lot of money. And it's not exactly mobile. You can't just pop it up in a random hotel ballroom like this. No. This is a ton of money, ton of investment, and a lot of professional crew required to do it. Whereas for Smash, it doesn't take that much expertise to run a Smash stream or a Smash tournament. It's a whole different, scale about it. And part of the reason for that is this next image, as you see with these clowns trying to do some PUBG broadcasting, I think. We don't really need all these frills. Like, they don't actually add anything to Smash for the most part. Now, I'm all for the cute production tricks, and I think this stuff is cool, so I'm really not hating on what they're doing out there. I'm actually friends with some of these guys. But more so, they have to do stuff like this because the way their game is set up, it is very difficult to follow. In Smash, you put a capture card on the gameplay, and you have everything you need to know and all the information you need to know to follow the game. You don't need any of these fancy tricks. There's just not this stuff to keep track of, right? So that keeps the cost low. It keeps the cost low. People aren't competing with each other, one-up each other by doing stuff like this. It's just not a thing, and that's awesome. And furthermore, let's look at DreamHack. Look at this. Right? Even in the LAN setting. So we just talked about production, how cheap it is to run a Smash production. It's literally pennies in comparison. We're talking about multiple hundreds of X, the price difference, right, to run one Smash tournament. But for even one Smash tournament broadcast. But what about the actual LAN area? What about the rest of the room? Well, they have to have PCs. They have to have, with high-end graphics cards usually, tons of monitors, like all of this stuff. This is just the rigging they have to put around there. Like, everything they have to do is so much more expensive. Now, keep in mind, they make up for this with sponsorships. They often have monitor sponsors, or maybe HP or whoever helps give them computers. And in DreamHack's case, it's a bring your own setup sort of deal. So they found ways to mitigate these costs, but it's nothing compared to what we got going on, right? What we got going on is insanely cheap, especially with the advent of gaming generations and suppliers like that. Like, we have vaults everywhere, and we just ship them to tournaments, and that really just works, right? For very low dollar amounts, we're able to set up a room, and it ends up being, if you look at most tournament budgets, that most of the budget is just the room, right? Whereas with other esports events, the room is just the start. It's just the start to running the tournament. So this is a huge strength. I can't emphasize this enough. We wouldn't exist as a community if we couldn't operate at such a low cost. And this is something that I think we need to guard closely. We want to keep these costs low, because how else are you going to run events, right? Like, we just are not capable of bringing in money like that. So big advantage, low cost of operations. Strength number 4. Anyone can compete. Simple path to pro with near infinite entry points. Okay, so what does this mean? By the way, I'm sure you guys are getting hyped right now. You're like, oh, wow, Smash, we got a lot of advantages over these other esports. Wait till the weaknesses. Let's keep going. So what does this one mean? Anyone can compete. It means that if you want to enter the ecosystem, if you want to go pro, it's actually, you're entering the same tournaments as Leffen, Armada, Mango, whoever, right? Like Zero, it doesn't matter. It's the same events. Going to a tournament and being a part of the community and being competitive can be had anywhere by anyone, right? And so this is something that probably gets underrated, especially for people who only watch the FGC and Smash. The FGC obviously has the same advantage. But other esports struggle at this mightily. This is one of their greatest weaknesses, in fact, is often this, right? So, as an example, let's look at what Overwatch's path to pro system is. First of all, you got to get high ranked on the actual ladder, right? Like the matchmaking. And then you go to an open division, which is like effectively a tournament style. And then you're a part of the contenders team, which is the minor league effectively. And after all this, you're not an Overwatch league, right? After all this, you're still not in the premier level of competition. And no one's watching you and no one really cares about your results. Like throughout this, pretty much. Until maybe you're at contenders, no one really gives it. No one cares, right? One thing you might notice is that low-level players aren't really having competitive matches. Sure, they're having matchmaking matches and ladder matches, but it's not the same thing as what we got going on in terms of a real competitive match. You enter Smash, and from day one, we could probably pair you with someone in the room and give you a competitive match, right? Literally right from the jump. You're having genuine competition, and it's not some hokey matchmaking. It's something that, at least in your world, it matters, right? And there's a whole system around that. This is very different from that. It is not the same thing. And the difference especially is that they'll have a hard time churning and turning over players as they go away. So I'd like to bring in a quote from one of my favorite esports professionals. I've never met him, but I've always watched from a distance and respected him. My boy Carmack from ESL. His quote is, "The game's longevity lies in how well it manages to replace its leavers with fresh blood. I consider a game dead or dying when it ceases to deliver new champions and when more people leave the scene than enter it." So this is the problem that other communities have, right? Like when we see this with like games like StarCraft, which have really high skill gaps, the really difficult games, right? People play the game for a while, and then the people who are good stay good, and especially they stay good because all of those good people talk to each other. They advance the metagame. They, compete against each other. So what chances does someone that's starting from scratch who doesn't have that social network, who doesn't have, the ability to even compete in those same events, right? They literally cannot compete to break in. It's very, very difficult. And through the years, what happens is that eventually people retire, eventually people quit, and now there are no new champions, and it feels like the game is dying. So this is a common problem among other esports, and why many of them haven't lasted as long as we have, right? So you might ask, well, Blur, we have the gods in Melee, right? And in Smash 4, I mean, Zero's been around forever, Nairo's been around forever. But I think it's a super short-sighted way of looking at these sort of things, especially if you just take a step back and take a larger lens on Smash. It's just a frankly ignorant statement to make because look at this guy, Plup. This guy's now, one of the best players in the world. He won Genesis. What about this guy's Zane? This year, he's now a new champion. Literally, this is his shine win, right? And look at MK Leo, right? Guy from Mexico. Mexico, not a large region in Smash World, right? Obviously the entrants are okay, but in terms of top level competition, hasn't been the greatest, but he has been able to make his way in the scene. He, had some results, but then he went to American tournaments and grew and gained friendship with North American players, and he used their knowledge through talking to them and effectively using that knowledge pool to make a break into the top level, right? Like this sort of stuff is happening like now, right? We see our rankings change constantly, and who's the best and who's worst change constantly in Smash Brothers, right? In many other games, they don't. It stagnates. This is a great strength. I really like this one. We have a really good way of just getting into the ecosystem. If you really want it, you can, and that's awesome. That's strength number 4. Let's go to number 5, and that's just the game, baby. Sometimes Smash just carries us, right? It's undeniable, actually, that the game is really the reason why the community has existed as long as it has, as well as all the passionate people behind it and the hardworking people behind it. But the game is a godlike. In more ways than just like my bias, has behind it. but in many functional ways that matter for an esport as well, right? So we talk about the tier list, and this is for Melee in particular. Well, the tier list has changed a bunch, and every single day we see new techniques discovered. Like literally, I think a day or two ago, I saw Squid doing new crouch cancel stuff with Smash GI that showed new punishes that you can do off that. Literally every tournament I see new stuff. To this day, I see innovations. I see new things. Like I mean, look at the Marth Puff matchup now versus a year ago in terms of how it was played at the top level. It's completely different. It's just completely different. It's not the same thing at all. And so tier list change, and this ends at July 2013. But if you look at where that final ranking is, people's opinions are very different, very very different from that last ranking, right? I mean, where's Pikachu even on this? Still not that high, right? Like 10, 11, I'd put her high. I'm a big fan of Pikachu, but overall, right? The game has, in Melee sense, right, has a pretty good balance behind it, and it's constantly changing, constantly evolving. If it was stale, we couldn't have lasted this long, right? If the game didn't have the depth it does, we couldn't have lasted this long. It's just carrying us, right? And furthermore, it's just the game is way watchable. Like if you can explain to me what's going on the screen in Overwatch, and I know Overwatch, right? It doesn't matter. This is just ridiculously hard to watch. I didn't have to go and find the most crowded pick in Overwatch either. I literally just went to twitch.tv/Overwatch. Like went to one of their last broadcasts, went to a random time point and pressed print screen. That's how I got this image. That's it. This is what it looks like half the time. Frankly, this is what it looks like, right? And it's a lot of visual stimuli. It's hard to follow. It's not easy to intuitively grasp. Smash, you can't say that about. It's literally, it's as easy as it gets. It's two things fighting. What else do you need to know? Also, game I've commentated before and I generally like, so I hate giving it some crap, but you don't have to deal with this on a competitive level, right? You don't have to deal with big, large swings of RNG. There's frankly little to none RNG in Smash Brothers. There is technically some with turnips and Pokemon Stadium transformations and just really isolated stuff. But for the most part, RNG doesn't really exist in Smash, and so that's awesome from a competitive level, right? You never get that really salty feeling as a competitor and as a spectator when your favorite player gets screwed by RNG. So that's a big deal. A lot of games have to deal with this. It's more than just Hearthstone, right? Like if you just look at the Battle Royales, for example, where the circle goes is a big RNG element about who wins, right? Like it's literally the most deciding factor. I hosted a PUBG event. I know. They were all talking to me. It's like the circle was in the worst spot ever. I lost. It's a big deal. It's so RNG driven. Okay. And in Leak's case, so if you guys can't read that, I'm sure you can't, in fact, that is me trying to take a screenshot of a League of Legends patch, right? This is patch version 8.13. I just picked a random one, literally just a random one, just clicked it. And these are some balance changes that they made. But of course, I couldn't keep it to one image. So here's the second one, and the third one, and the fourth one, and the fifth, and the sixth. And I think it ends now. Okay, seventh. 7 pictures, right? They changed everything. It's like almost every champion. I didn't cherry pick this patch. I literally just picked one. I just picked a random one. They changed so much with the game. The game changes so much. And of course, it's not just about how much they change across the board of the game, but also how often they do it. Look at this. This is nuts. This is the most insane thing I've ever seen. Look at the dates on all these patches. October 24th, October 10th, September 26th, September 12th, August 29th, August 15th, August. It's like 2 weeks in between each. There's like 2 weeks between every patch. And matter of fact, look really closely. It says various balance changes on the bottom. Guys, almost like literally all these patches had a similarly long patch notes to it. There was that many balance changes in practically every single one. This may be okay for the casual environment of the game, but for the esport, it's damning. Like, you play singular tournaments out, and it's people aren't playing the same game anymore, right? And of course, at tournaments they try to keep it locked, but the players at home are playing a different game than the people that are watching sometimes, and not just that, but like, how are you supposed to practice as a competitive player when it gets passed this often? It's just nuts. And they have to do it because they're casual audience, right? They have to try to cater to people who are complaining about this or that champion. And of course, I'd recommend this awesome video by Doublelift of storied NALCS Pro, who talks about this exact problem where he thinks there's way too many patches. He's not the only one who's had this complaint. It's a very common complaint among the esports professionals. Literally, when I talk to them and I hang out with them, this is all they talk about. They have such a hard time being a pro because they have to change their strategy and their thinking so often, and it requires so much practice, and figuring out the meta every other week is really exhausting. So I don't want to talk about League too much, but the general point here is we have retained interest and we like where our game is at overall. Sure, the Wii U and soon to be Ultimate community, there's patches in that game, but it's pretty infrequent. It's not that bad, and often they're pretty good ones. Like, okay, maybe we didn't like what they just did Bayonetta in the end, and certain other things, but it's not like this, right? This is just horrible for an esport, and we're specifically talking about our strengths as an esport. So that is a big deal. And this is a picture of Genesis. So I just want to emphasize the point that if you give Smash the stage, it steps up, right? And this is not always true for other esports. I really do think that like Melee in particular, I think has a mystic force where if you put on a good production, you give it the proper support that it needs, it literally always steps up. It doesn't make any sense, but it always steps up. Now you guys might be saying, oh, I don't like Hungrybox winning, whatever. Personally, I'm fine with that. But regardless, I think for the most part, Smash's consistency in delivering quality, top level, and high level matches is nuts. You just give it a stage, and it's entertaining and awesome. And you don't see this in other esports, right? It's just not the same level. I think like Counter-Strike, for example, also has this same factor where it's just like just give it a stage, and the game takes care of the rest. But it's really electric. It's a great spectator sport. So string number 6. This one's a big one too, though we're not really taking advantage of it. It's a globally recognized family-friendly IP. Why do we have so many of these players coming in when Ultimate comes out? And why are we such a unique niche in the ecosystem for the Nintendo fan? It's because we're the Nintendo esport, right? Like, Nintendo is a humongous pillar in gaming. It's one of the major console makers. The Switch is huge. Like, Nintendo fandom is just rabid. It's like the most important company to ever exist in gaming, frankly. And this is the esport for fans of Nintendo. And that's awesome. Nintendo is one of the strongest IP holders. Maybe, like, after Disney, it's Nintendo in terms of who in the world has the best media IP. And that is phenomenally good for sponsorship because it's also family-friendly. So, in contrast, let's talk about Counter-Strike for a second. Here's a tweet by Anders Bloom. Anders is a commentator for Counter-Strike. And he asked, is it okay to swap the counter-terrorist and terrorist sides with offensive and defensive, right? He's saying, what if we rename the two factions from counter-terrorist and terrorist to offensive and defensive? And he's asking that for a very particular reason. And that's because they have a hellish time of getting sponsorships because of the gore, because of the adult materials, and because simply the name counter-terrorist and terrorist, and bombs and things like that. Like, people just, a lot of companies do not want to be associated with that. But you know what they would want to be associated with? Pikachu. Pikachu. Look at this cutie. So cute. Pikachu, Mario, Zelda, like Metroid, Castlevania, Snake, Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, look at the list of like IP that's across the band. Like, it's nuts what's in Smash Brothers. And it's a super awesome strength because in what other world and in what other capacity can you get your brand next to Pikachu, next to Mario? You just can't. You literally can't. It's not like Nintendo has other avenues for advertisers to really put themselves next to their IP. There's just no way. They're so protected. But we're cool with it, and we represent that fandom, and we target that audience. So absolutely, this is a really good thing, and it keeps our player base young. It lets us bring in new faces all the time, right? Like if we had a super mature esport, say like a PUBG, where like the game looks really gritty, I don't think when a new game comes out, like let's say an Ultimate comes out, we'd see a bunch of 14 to 18-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, right, come into the scene. And sure, they may be young now, but some of them are going to stick around and they're going to get older. And that's awesome because then it turns into that lifestyle, which was strength number one. A lot of the stuff is additive. So, strength number 6, big one. I like it a lot. Strength number 7, awesome personalities, people like me, with the freedom to express themselves. And the second one is really what's important, right? Because I do think other esports have awesome personalities. This is not like just me being biased. I really think that a lot of other esports are similarly talented. Some more so, right? I do think the StarCraft people are really talented. I mean, talk about In Control, Tasteless, Artosis. Like, some of these guys are hilarious people, and they have great personalities as well. So we're not alone in that capacity, but more often than not, we have the most freedom to express ourselves, right? StarCraft has quite a bit too, but a lot of esports are stilted. They aren't able to do a lot of cool creative things because of IP holders, because of sponsors, or whatever reason. They're just not doing it like we do, right? And great examples of that is we just had a roast. We had a roast. Like, to quote the great Atrioc, other esports would die for this type of content. But Smashers, the players, the commentators, everybody is willing to do things like this. They're willing to do this. Pro players in other esports would never get roasted. Like, they just don't want to do that. And they wouldn't want to roast someone. They wouldn't want to put themselves out on a limb like that. They wouldn't feel comfortable. And many people don't feel comfortable to be in front of the camera. But in Smash, we've internalized, because we have to grind for everything we get, that everyone's got to be a part of it, and everyone's got to be a part of the content. So building your personality is part of being a pro. Building your personality is part of being a smasher, frankly. Like, it's a real big deal. And so we're able to do stuff like that. Similarly, we have a freaking rap culture. How does that make sense? Remember Apex 2015, the Salty Sweets, things like that? Like, that doesn't happen in other communities, except for the FGC, but they also have more freedom. Not in CPT, but Tekken and things like that, yeah, they do, right? Marvel, DBZ, like they have freedom, so they have that strength too. And I mean, if in Smash 4's case, like let's talk about FGC for a second with CEO. They have those intros with like wrestling style. Everyone remembers Anti's awesome intro when it came out. You know, it's awesome. It's awesome. Shows personality. And it are things that I think need to be closely guarded. You know, a lot of people want to go more professional, and I do too. But I do think you need to also allow people to show their personality, and we do that really well right now. Strength number 8, history. We grew as a community on the backs of a documentary. Other communities can't do that. They just, what are you gonna do? Make a documentary over the last 6 months? Like, it doesn't make sense. So many esports start and try to break into the industry at this point, and it's really, really difficult, right? You see a new esport game being developed every month. They try to make something new happen. They try to make fetch a thing, but people aren't into it. But Smash Brothers, we're already established. We're already one of the major esports in a time where it's extremely difficult to become a new esport, right, and gain people's attention. So we're already in the mix, and we have history, and this history is additive. Every year we last, this strength becomes stronger, because the more history there is, the more things are impactful. I wish we use this one more, and you know, as I talked about in the beginning of the talk, you know, we have to always think about how do we amplify these strengths, but our history is one of our greatest strengths. And every year we last, it'll get bigger and bigger. So, yeah, it's awesome that we've lasted nearly 20 years. That's crazy. It's crazy. So, yeah, it's dope. Strength number 9, regionalized fandom. So everyone knows about the Melee regional crew battles at Big House. Always a big deal. Now a tradition. This was the Big House 6 advertisement that they did for it. Really successful, awesome stuff. Pits regions against each other's. Different locales go against each other's and show their pride. And also on a more smaller scale, I just pulled this from YouTube. This is Memphis versus Middle Tennessee. This sort of stuff happens all over the place, like literally in big and small pockets. People having crew battles, showing pride. In SoCal, we have the 818 versus Irvine versus, all the different subregions have a lot of pride around them. And you can really take advantage of that in locals. And you can take advantage of it through merchandising as well, which people are super about. And so why is this important? First of all, most esports aren't regionalized. There's only one that really is, arguably two. Overwatch, obviously, look how hard they're trying to be regionalized. They're somehow running a global league out of one studio in Los Angeles, but they're saying, hey, this team's actually from Shanghai, guys. It's kind of ridiculous, but they're trying. They're trying to be regional because they know the power of regional pride. It gets people into sports. It gets, it brings people in. But in Smash, we already have that, right? If you're from SoCal, you're most likely going to be a Mango fan. If you're from anywhere else, you're also probably going to be a Mango fan. But in particular, like NorCal players like Shroom, they love Pew Pew, right? They love their SFAT. The European players will root for Leffen and Armada. Like, it is a thing. It's a thing that we have that goes beyond, like, what other esports have, where it's like, oh, this is an NA player, and it's some sort of tertiary bond. For us, because we see them at locals, and because we compete with them in crew battles, they're genuinely part of our ecosystem, and you feel super connected with them. And this goes all the way down, right? What's even better is that even if Overwatch League succeeds, it's only a connection between the top level, which is like, let's say, Shanghai Dragons, and the people of Shanghai. But for us, it's the low-level guys sometimes, right? The upstarts, the guys who no one's cheering for them in Overwatch, right? Let's say the random player from Los Angeles, right? They're just you're a low-level player. No one cares about you. For us, you're a random player from Los Angeles. All of SoCal will get behind you, straight up. We'll watch your tournament matches and we'll cheer for you. And people will get your homies will be right there. Regionalized fandom, esports, other esports want this. We got it. It's awesome. We can amplify this more again. Everything here can be amplified, but it's something that we have, and it's really sweet. Trait number 10, fantastic community leadership. Demi. No, but for real, I don't mean just me in this. I think that overall the Smash community, because it's just such a passionate group of people, it's just a really solid group of folks. I know I talked about this in the global network stuff, but really, I think this is a separate point. The people who succeed in Smash and who end up as community leaders in Smash, honestly, like I look around esports and it's not the same. It is not the same. Even I gotta say this in the FGC, they stab each other in the back left and right. Smash Brothers, we don't do that. We all know we're just trying to make the community bigger. We just don't do that. And I think obviously in so many ways stuff like this can be better, but I look at really positive cases where I see this stuff organized well, and it looks overall really good. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. Let's look at one of my homies, Raynad. Congrats, by the way, on picking up 0. And he says, I think Smash is one of the best examples of a successful esport in so many ways. I think Smash succeeds as an esport in the ways that most other esports fail. How do I put it? I think League of Legends has more to learn from Smash than Smash has to learn from League of Legends. It's all grassroots initiatives, community events, 0 fucking developer support, and 0 expectation of it. Excellent storylines. The game itself is maybe the best competitive game in the world, just from like game mechanics standpoints. It's sick. Why? I do so agree, Raynad. What a better manager for 0, SJ, and X. Can't think of a better guy to be a part of our community. And so, I know my face is covering some of the quote, but I read it out. So, the point that's being made here by him is that Smash is sick, and overall, its management, its the organization behind it, even though it doesn't have full-time professionals doing all that management, it's passionate people putting a lot of work in. And when I say community leadership, I don't just mean at like the national level, the guys who get more attention than they deserve, like me, Tafo, or whoever. But more so within local zones, within certain pockets. I really do think that Smash has great people when it comes down to it, because, like Chillin says, great people seem to gravitate to this game because they have such excellent taste. So these are the strengths. I understand a lot of this stuff is like super optimistic. These are the strengths, right? Like, these are some amazing strengths. We just talked about low cost of operations. We just talking about, how the Smasher will spend money. We just talking about like community leadership, the global network. Just like you could come in at any time and you could make an impact. All this stuff that's like really, really powerful, strong reasons why we succeed. These are the reasons, in my opinion, the 10 most important reasons why we're succeeding right now, in my opinion. And I think these are really good. But you might just get depressed because these weaknesses are really bad. The weaknesses, in my opinion, are really bad. But we have to talk about them, right? Like I said, I want us to move forward. So let's go on to weakness number 1. Ugh, this one's going to hurt. And that's a poor international presence. Our national presence is trash. So, NA Smash is really big. EU, it's moderately big in Melee. It's smaller in the Wii U and probably Ultimate communities. Japan, it's bigger in Wii U, but a little smaller in Melee right now. It's gone back and forth over Smash history, but Australia has a scene like, and there's a bunch of other regions like Latin America and whatever. So we have international presence, but it is nothing compared to other esports. And I don't just mean like on a very like straight up basis, like, okay, they're just bigger than us, what can we do? Because that's just not a very thoughtful analysis, in my opinion. What I mean is that we have really large barriers for getting bigger internationally. And for example, what was this picture? What does that have to do with anything? Here is a internet cafe in China, in Lijiang, China, that I found. This picture I found on the internet. So one of the reasons that we have a hard time of getting into China and being a big presence there is because they actually have had a console gaming ban from 2015, right? And that made them, for the most part, turn into a PC and mobile country, right? This is over 1 billion people, soon to be superpower. This is a very important region to be present in, and it's going to be really, really difficult because they're playing on PC, and they never really played Smash. They don't even know, most of them don't even know what Smash Brothers is. I called it a global IP in the strengths, but sort of actually isn't. And another example of that is Nintendo is not in Brazil for distribution, and they've never really been in India, right? And then we start talking about Eastern Europe, Africa, parts of like South America. Like there's large parts of the world which are not exposed to Nintendo. It's not a thing. So as good as the IP is, it's mostly good in Western Europe, the Americas, some of Latin America, Japan. Even if you look at regions like Korea, they had a different publisher, so it's kind of like a jank little disc. Not sure if you guys ever seen it. I'm sorry I didn't pick up a picture of it to put on here, but they didn't have direct publishing, and of course that country also has a mostly PC gaming culture. By being stuck on consoles, we're limited in that respect. It's tough, and it goes beyond that barrier, which is a very large barrier, right? When your game didn't even release in the country, how are you supposed to grow there? It's very hard. It's very, very difficult, which is why when we talk about the Chinese Smash community, which there is one, right? They have moderately sized tournaments. It's mostly expats, right? Americans and other people who move to China and are just hosting tournaments together. It's not a lot of native Chinese people. Same with Korea, a lot of similar things. They just don't have that Nintendo culture because of where Nintendo operates. I think it's hard for us in America to see a world without Pikachu, Mario, Pokemon, like all this stuff that like we grew up with. But a lot of the world does not do any of that. I grew up a part of my life in Iran. Nintendo was sort of kind of there, like mostly through piracy. And I think in many of these countries you can say the same thing. So they're sort of kind of there in that respect, but it's not an official presence. And a lot of times it takes a backseat to other types of gaming. So we're going to be hindered by that. That's a big problem. But it's not the only problem we have. Most of our content, or frankly, pretty much all of it, is made in English. I don't know if you guys know this, but not everyone in the world speaks English. It's a big, big problem. We had a little bit of period of time where we were doing multilingual broadcasts, which I have listed, and I'm going to go to the next thing, as one of the mitigating factors. We need to do foreign language co-streams. But we stopped doing it for, frankly, no reason. But they're so important. The other things I've listed before I go in depth about this stuff is NATOs going abroad and hosting events of their own. This is a thing I always recommend. And a mentorship program. So why are these things great ways to mitigate? So for the first one, the one that's the most important, this one I think actually gets us like almost halfway there, is if we could figure out a way to fund and make foreign language co-streams. Just have all our majors broadcast in Japanese, in French, in Spanish, and like all these languages that we just hit them. And guess what? You start doing that, you build a really strong channel around it, like a really large, like consolidated channel that's like just Smash in Spanish and Japanese or whatever, independent channels, and that's all they do. They do co-streams for this, and you get halfway there. I think it's genuinely impossible to grow in those regions until we do this. If the content is always in English, the players, there's so many people in those countries that won't be exposed to it. And you can see this, by the way. So I had an awesome conversation at AIR with this guy from Saudi Arabia. And, a lot. I talk to Middle Eastern Smash all the time. And you see this in every region, by the way, for our international scenes. Latin America, Japan, all this. You look around, you're like, wow, this guy's got perfect English. Fantastic English. How is that so? And it's because it's a self-selecting process. Because all of our content's in English, we only find the Saudis in that know English. We only find the Japanese people that know English, right? There's some Japanese content, thankfully, out there thanks to Shig Gaming and all them. But you go around the Latin American scene, okay, some of them don't know English, but a lot of them do. A lot of them do. More than the average Mexican or more than the average person in Honduras, Nicaragua. Like, it is a self-selecting thing that because all our content's English, because that's a way we pull players in. Content's like one of the best ways, if not the best way to pull players in. As long as it's in English, you're going to just get more English speakers. So this is a thing that needs to happen. Like, this is a humongous weakness. It's weakness number one for a reason. I know they're in no order in particular, but if we don't do foreign language co-streams, we're failing. That's the bottom line. So number two, NATOs going abroad and hosting events of their own. So this is like a broader topic of like, I've really struggled with this, right? So I've had so many calls with non-NATOs, advising them, talking to them, and trying to help them along. But it's actually it's like pulling teeth, right? Because many of them, and there's some exceptions, right? There's some very few exceptions. Just don't have the event experience, and there's just too much to teach, right? And the only way to truly fix it, in my opinion, is for the big name TOs in North America to just spread their wings and go to another region, partner up with a local TO, make the local TO second in command, and teach them the ropes, right? You need to mentor them. You need to make it feel like, hey, I might pass this off to you at one point, but for now, or maybe you don't. Maybe it's forever a partnership. For now, I want to make things happen. One guy who's really doing this, and I always encourage this, is the Endgame guys. They're trying to like maybe make things happen with international communities. This is something more NATOs need to do, and also it's a good way to make money, by the way, because North America has unions, it has extremely expensive venues, and I'll be honest, you can make more money hosting events in other regions, right? I mean, you look at Beast is it's mind-boggling to me that, sure, it died, but that venue was pretty cheap. And somehow Low Lex managed to lose money. But that's the Swedish community can literally run the same event in the same venue, rename it, and you have another major in Europe. That's a big deal for a region that doesn't have majors, right? You need another Swedish event. You already know a venue that works. Make it happen. And if they're not willing to make it happen, an ATO should make it happen. And they'll make money, right? You have a hard time making money while you're hosting your events in San Francisco? No shit. Run something in Europe. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. Put the venue to the name of some other local TO. Go out there, host the event, take venue fees. You're good. It's not that hard. But people don't want to go outside their comfort zone. But this is something I think is wildly important. So, all right, weakness number 1. Poor international presence. A lot we can do here. A lot we can do here. So important. I care about this one so much. But this is weakness number 1. Weakness number 2. Dependence on key individuals, brain drain, hard time retaining talent, and high turnover. So we said it's one of our strengths that people can have an outsized influence on the success of the scene. Individuals are really awesome contributors, and we've had some great contributors over time, right? Like you look at some of the key individuals who have made Smash what it is. But the problem is, this is becoming one of our Achilles heels, especially this year. This is I think the number one reason why I think we declined this year is this one in particular. These people are so good, they're getting hired. Like, for actual money, and that's great. That's awesome. That's fantastic. But they're having less time for Smash Brothers. And that hurts the scene, and it's still a weakness. So, yeah, blame little Donato over there. This is cute. Bob's got a cute kid. I'm not gonna lie. That's a freaking cute kid. How are these two? This kid's gonna grow up just like him. I can't wait. But as an example, Scar, awesome community contributor. He still does a lot of things. Obviously, like it's not like his life is over because the kid or anything. He's been doing awesome things and helping the community out, whether in commentary or making content. But still, hey, he had a kid. He had to take some time away from Smash, and he was a little less active. Nothing wrong with that. You have to do that. This is less in relation to retaining talent, but we felt that hole, right? Scar was that important. He's that godlike of a community contributor that we felt that hole because we were so dependent on such a strong personality. Another example is, like, for example, me and D1 getting hired to Twitch, which we're hired to Smash Brothers roles. We were hired for Smash Brothers roles, so that's awesome. That's in fact that's not really a bad thing at all. Like, it's not taking us away from Smash at all. That's great. But, we have to, with more time, especially recently, I can say this for myself in particular, D1 as well, like, we are working on things that aren't Smash, right? And we're spending more and more time on it. And for me, it's one of the most frustrating things is that I'm watching a year where Smash declined. The only year, by the way, where Smash declined for my 4 years at Twitch. Every other year where I was, like, super focused on it, it felt like, okay, we're making progress. There's more and more growth. But this year, I've been pulled away from it, doing things like I talked about, PUBG event I did recently, like a lot of things for other esports, and it's awesome. I'm learning. It's great. It's good for my own personal growth, but it's taking me away from Smash, and that matters. Other examples is look at EE, my boy, doing big things. Happy for him. Not again. These are things I want for these people. I want them to succeed and grow their careers. That's great. But now he's going to 2K, right? We can't retain that talent because they're paying more. It's hard to retain talent. And so, like, this is not, how big is this problem, right? Maybe you're looking at this and you're thinking, okay, that's just a few people. Like, what's the big deal? Okay, let me give you a list. This is not a complete list, and it's the et cetera in Smash UG. I mean, Smash UG literally has, like, 40 people that are almost all Smashers, right? Scar, Blur, D1, Pablo, who's one of the biggest organizers in Latin America. Ayuha was the biggest TO in Japan, and now, these guys are less involved in Smash. All of these people, these are so many people that, sure, in so many ways, by getting hired, many of them were able to spend more time on Smash. Like, let's say, I'm sure Slime or Dr. Z, Sheridan, Matt.Zeb, like, they were able to spend more time on Smash because of the job, and they went to esports positions, so it made it more possible. But It's not always going to be true, and certainly I think as these guys grow their careers and they become more and more established in the scene, it's going to cause them to drift apart. And a great example of that is, my current boss is Justin Delario. People don't know this, but he also had a lot of his beginnings in Smash Brothers. Another example of that is Nick Allen. He also, one of the first things he did was Smash Brothers. So you see this in sometimes older generations, and most of us don't even think about it. But when I walk around esports, especially NA esports, because Smash does such a good job building a leadership and cultivating personalities, cultivating leaders, and getting it helps people get a start in esports. Because hosting a Smash tournament is so low cost, it's something you could just do to get your start. I go around NA esports especially, and everyone has done Smash before. Like, it's so many people. I talk to, I go to one guy, like, oh yeah, I ran Smash tournaments back in the day. I started in Smash, right? And then now they work for Riot. Now they work for PUBG Corp. Now they work for whoever, right? But they got their start in Smash. We don't still have those people who are clearly good people because they ended up getting hired and have these successful careers. We don't have those people anymore because we can't retain them. And it causes a large turnover. So it means that we have to reteach a lot. So I just talked about the international regions, right? One of my frustrations is in those regions, there's even larger turnover, right? Because there's less consistency. So, and events could be even, it's sometimes it's harder for them to know how to be successful. So every year I feel like I'm teaching a new person whenever I consult those events. And so, and you see this across the scene. It's so rare for an event to go past its fourth iteration, and especially at a major level, right? It's incredible that Big House has had 8 iterations. It's just not a common thing for our community because TOs quit, TOs move on. Tournament series can't stay afloat, and when these things happen, it causes a large crater in that scene. When the community leader of that region leaves, often that scene declines. So yeah, brain drain. This is one of those that, like, maybe you look at it at face value, like, is this really one of the 10 biggest things that is important? But then you think about this year in particular, where a lot of these people on this list and otherwise, a lot of people in general, put less time into Smash and had to put time into other things just to make ends meet. And you realize, oh crap, this is a big deal, right? We can't have we have high quality people coming in. Our funnel's good on the top, but we lose them. Weakness number 3, accessibility. So this one's commonly known. I don't want to spend too much time on this one, but CRTs. League of Legends is free. We're not, right? And our game's hard. Hate it or love it, we love it, but our game's hard, right? It is a difficult game, and it's kind of expensive to get into sometimes for a lot of people. So, yeah, we all know about this, right? Like, getting people started in Smash, not the easiest thing to do. Thankfully, I think net play has helped mitigate this a lot, but it's not. I don't think it's really in the gaming ethos. I don't think a lot of people know that you can play Melee Online for free, right? For example, or all these things. So this is always going to gatekeep our size, right? Free-to-play games are big esports for a reason, and it's because they have large communities because they're free. So accessibility. A lot of people talk about this one. Again, don't want to dwell on it, but it's a problem. We only do so much about it. But we can mitigate it a little bit, and I hope the growth of net play, especially, brings about that change. So yeah, ways to mitigate. Game controllers, bring the price down. Sometimes look on Amazon, they're way too expensive. More beginner-friendly content. We have a lot on the internet. We don't have also content aggregators, like just things that point people to. And eventually, I think I'm the CRT guy, but I think eventually, not now, probably like 3+ years from now, I think we're gonna have to switch from CRTs and go into monitors, just because, it's getting harder and harder to find them. And at one point, we're just gonna have to do it. We're gonna have to bite the bullet. There's just not gonna be a choice. But it's not quite yet. So this one, I think everyone talks about this one. So again, let's move on. Weakness number 4. This one I want to talk about a lot. Every match does not matter. Players have a hard time tracking their progress. So we have a lot of entry points into the scene, like we talked about in our strengths, but Um, what do you do once you're there, right? So sure, you go to a Smash tournament, but then you're in the Smash community for 3, 4, 5, 6 months maybe. And have you gotten better? Have you not? Do you know that? You could still be going 0-2 in that time even, and you don't even know that, right? Like, are you getting the progression that you see in other esports? And an example I'd make is, I mean, practically literally every other esport but us has this. Sure, we have the net play stuff, but come on. Like, it's not the same because we don't even value those ranks really, right? Like, is number one on net play the best in the world? No, right? It's just kind of, it's a silly thing that sort of kind of helps fix this problem, but it's not the real deal, right? We don't have tournament results that stack onto each other, right? And it's a demotivating factor. Like, if you feel like, hey, I want to finish this season at Diamond, and I want to improve from last season when I was Platinum, that can be a goal for you as a player. And this is a blurrism, but I always say the sign of a healthy community is when players of all levels have goals and have things that they want to accomplish. In Smash, we don't really give people goals, right? It's like, make PR. That's your goal. Or make the top 100. You know how hard it is to make the top 100? What is it, like, play for 5 years? Your first goal comes in 5 years in? Like, what the hell? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Whereas with this sort of tiered system that you see in so many other games, first just, do well in bronze. Get your score up. Right? We don't have a penultimate number that represents how good you are in the game. This is a big, big deal. This is one of our biggest weaknesses. We don't have a number like, let's say, a chess player does. That they just look at their elo and they're like, this is how good I am. Right? And they care about that. They guard, and they want to go to events to improve that number. It's a big deal. This is something that would be a driver for us and make people want to go to events, but we don't have it. So, really big deal. And to continue off that point, it matters more how good you are perceived, more how you are perceived than how good you actually are. So, what do I mean by that? I'm speaking specifically about subjective rankings. And I think, shout out to all the people working on power rankings and the PGR for Melee. Obviously, the Wii U one's a little different, but I'd still call it a subjective ranking because you got for many other reasons. But in general, the community is governed by subjective rankings. So some panel gets together and they say how good you are. So in my notes, and let's start listing off weaknesses to this and why it's holding us back. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of real, genuine weaknesses to this. So number one is that subjective rankings can only go so far down, right? There's a top 100 in Melee, but there's so many more players than that. And even in local regions, you might go down to 20. Many just go down to 10. But you have way more players than that. And everyone doesn't really get to feel how well they did. And doesn't know where they stand. It is, so many players go their entire Smash career and they're never power ranked. That sucks. And you can only go so far down because, people don't... You just can't make a list of thousands, right? It's just too hard. So the second weakness of this, I'd say, is that missing events can be beneficial. We've heard Leffen talk about this before. It's just generally a thing. Would Chudet be better ranked in that 1 year he did really well? If he stopped going to events in the second half, I think he would have. He did start going to less, maybe coincidentally. But in general, not going to events can be good for you because, hey, I started off really well this season, and I only need so many results to qualify. So why do I got to go to everything? Again, it is not a motivating factor to go to events. Subjective rankings is not really a motivating factor where other systems are, right? And so it's hard to update them. Super hard to update them because it takes a whole panel to come together. And they're irrelevant almost immediately, right? The top 100 list for Melee and the summer rankings, they don't matter anymore. It's November. It's just wrong. It's just so wrong. So they don't get automatically updated. So it hurts what's next, which is that it makes it so hard for storylines, right? Someone Zayn wins Shine, and we can't definitively say how good is he overall. His number doesn't go up. His rank overall doesn't go up. It's more like, wow, he won Shine. That's awesome. great, and that's a good storyline in and of itself. But it's just that in and of itself, we can't say, oh wow, now he passed up Wizrobe in the rankings officially, right? Officially, that puts him higher than them, and officially, like we don't have like you see in tennis, for example, where hey, whoever wins Wimbledon, Nadal or Federer, is now number one in the world in the ATP rankings, right? We don't have that, right? When we walk into events, it's like, well, whoever wins wins, and then we converge 6 months later and talk about our rankings, right? It's just really really bad for storylines. And then also there's just inconsistent standards and biases, right? Like, what events really matter, what events don't matter. I think because of how the standards have been for the last while, it takes the top players away from locals. Like if you're a top player, and especially if you have hard locals, why would you go to your locals and risk a loss on your record? That's going to be taken into account in the subjective ranking. When instead you could just not go to your local and only use majors as a way to as a data point for people, right? It's again doesn't encourage people to go to events, and I think it's really hard for people to know what it takes to move their rank up, especially like in the top 100s example. If you're ranked number 80 and you want to make a new goal for yourself, like I want to be top 70, it's just kind of BS. It's just it's literally the difference between rank 80 and 70. I can't tell you, right? And I don't think even voters can tell you. It's not a significant difference. And so, again, it makes goals harder. We talk about goals of every level. It's just worse in that respect. So, yeah, this is a big weakness. Big weakness. Weakness number 5. Irregularity of consistent premium content. This is also one of the biggest reasons we declined this year, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. This is a major problem. I made this list of all the channels in Smash Brothers on the left, and on the right you see pretty much all you have to follow to watch professional Overwatch. There's Overwatch League. Now obviously it sucks that they don't have a more diverse ecosystem. I don't like that in particular, but more to the point, if you want to watch professional Overwatch, just follow that fucking channel, and maybe like follow the Contenders channel if you want to, right? Like that's all you really gotta do. That's it. There's really not much to it. That's really all you gotta do. For us, I tried to get all the major streams. These are all streams, by the way, not TOs. These are like channels, and I could have filled up another slide with streamers here. Like it would have been quite easy. And this is not just like a list of like people who stream competitive Smash Brothers. It's most of these guys. I think all of them hosted a major or large event on their channel this year. Or this year or last. So VG Bootcamp, everyone knows. Like, obviously they did Big House recently. Melee Every Day. They did the Smash Splash secondary stream. They did a bunch of different ones. They did Full Bloom. Oxy. They do the TMTs. They do SSSs. They do Blood for Blood. At end of last year. Back in the day they did Kings of Cali and all that stuff. So, Endgame. They did Dome Park last time. They do other stuff like The Gang, whatever. Sack Gaming, like they did Run Back. Of course, Evo's on his own channel. All the Summit events, 2UG's events. Like, it's extremely difficult to follow Smash Brothers. I help make the schedule. I decide when things happen, right? And I have a hard time following Smash Brothers. Pretty much the only way to do it, especially now that Reddit's unusable, for Melee fans, right? And esports fans in general, is to go on the Twitch directory and hope on a weekend and hope to find something. It's absurdly difficult, and it's not getting better. This problem is getting much worse. Last weekend, GTX Game Tyrant was on its own channel. A new major, like on a relative sense, for the last year and a half. Last 2 iterations, with Smash and Splash. Its finals, I think, was on GHQ TV. Gommel is always on Even Matchup. They do like EGLX and other things too, but still, right? To watch Smash, you have to follow like 20 channels. Like if you want to watch the tournaments that are relevant, you have to follow like 20 plus channels. And even then, like, it's not like there's a Twitter, like, you're not going to follow all this stuff, right? It's not like any of these can coalesce and overall, like, grow from that point. Like, I guarantee you, I'll put my life savings on it, that Game Tyrant channel is going to be unused until potentially the next GTX. Effectively, right? Like, maybe they run some locals. But it's, for the most part, just going to be a dead channel. And that sucks, right? All these viewers come in, 20,000 plus views, come into a channel, and instead of building it all up and getting followership that actually matters, it's a channel that stays dead for months at a time, right? Like, that sucks. Sucks, and it's a problem that's gotten worse, right? Because there's less events now on VG Bootcamp than there used to be, and overall, it's the scene's just getting more fractured in this respect, right? So this is a real big problem, and I don't think it's good for anybody, honestly. I think it's just bad. But this isn't the only problem, right? It's not just the fact that the channels are so out of whack. Like, it's so bad. But also, when I say irregular of consistent premium content, what about weekdays, right? Other esports have weekday content, right? We just talked about Overwatch. This is an average Overwatch like week. You see Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They have content on weekdays. What do we have? We only have weekends. We don't have every weekend we have premium content. We have some weekends very regularly, often lopsided towards shorter months. We have 4 or 5 weekends a month at a time sometimes where we have nothing, right? Which means, by the way, where we have 4 or 5 weeks at a time with no content, period. No premium content, period. Sure, there's locals and stuff. Sure, there's home streamers and stuff. But you can't retain an audience and grow an audience. First of all, if you're on a different channel every week. But also, you can't really retain it if the calendar isn't spaced out right. And I try my hardest. Me, Aiden, the Smash calendar team, we try our hardest to make it spaced out. But you still look at, like, this year, the big bunch up in August and the big bunch up in May, so many other months basically blank. It's absurd. And so many TOs aren't willing to work together to make this better. It's a huge weakness. And also, no one's really making good premium weekday content. Content that people would actually want. I'm talking about premium. I'm talking about, like, good stuff that you would watch, right? Not just the locals, better, like, things that people would watch, so we could fill in the weekday spot with genuine competitive content. So to continue this point, this is primarily the reason why monetization of tournament broadcast is low, right? We're seeing this huge surge in esports, where you see this media rights deal to the far left for Overwatch League, $90 million. ESL signed with Facebook not that long ago for CSGO events in their league, the ESL Pro League. They did it with YouTube before that. And then on the right, you see Omen sponsoring Overwatch League. Like, I genuinely believe Smash Brothers is better to sponsor than most esports. It's like the executives and marketing people understand Mario and Pikachu. They understand a lot of this stuff. And it's family friendly. Like, a lot of these brands, they literally can't touch these games, right? Because they have guns and things like that. As we talked about in our strength, but we're not using it at all. And we can't, because our viewership numbers pale in comparison to these guys, as it is. But no one, because of the previous problem with how fractured we are in terms of the channel base, no one has content that's worth a damn. Just no one does. Right? Even VG Bootcamp only does a few major events a year, right? And they're the biggest. You can't package up what anyone has to build anything of value. It just doesn't make sense. You're not going to sponsor these one-off events, really. Like, I don't think a company like HP is like, oh, sweet, we're going to sponsor Game Tyrant Expo, right? Like, this thing that's in, like, this game store in Utah. Like, you're not going to do that. But what you might do is, if every Smash event was on the same channel and unified, okay, that has real value, right? And that's something that you might consider. Even for the largest events, you see sales is extremely low. And so, look, we're not going to get as much money in media rights and sponsorships as other esports. Just practically, we're not. We are not the IP holder. We're not, like, we're just not connected in the same way as the large businesses are. I'm not Bobby Kotick. I can't make a phone call to the CEO of these companies and they won't respond to me, right? So, but we can do better. Every other esport is outperforming us in this respect right now. Even the FGC is. Like what? Right? Every esport is outperforming us in media rights and sponsorships. And ones that were like 2x, 3x, 4x bigger are also outperforming us, right? To put into context, guys, if you combine the media rights and sponsorships in Smash Brothers across the scene, and I know these numbers exactly, it doesn't add up to like 150K. A year, right? Like 150K. That's nothing. That's nothing. You see that 90 million number? Like that deal, by the way, was signed when Overwatch Esports was like nothing, right? Smash was like a comparable size at the point at that point. Like, sure, we're never gonna get 90. We're not even gonna get close, right? But we could do better than 150K. We could do better than 150K for sponsorship plus this combined. It's again, I make most of the sponsorship deals in Smash, and I know all the media rights stuff as well. We are dead last. It's not something I'm proud of. Like I don't think we're doing very well in this respect. So thing we need to do, we need to unify and consolidate. Sure, I still want there to be an open market. So I want to make that clear. Like it can be on, one central channel with one centralized branding, but you can still hire different production teams, right? Like it doesn't mean that, let's say, everything's on the VG Bootcamp channel. It doesn't mean that Endgame TV is dead, right? No, instead you hire Endgame TV and you put it on that one channel, right? Like it's you just give them money that way. Right now, these guys are making no money off their tournament broadcast, anyways. There's no need. Like, what the point of the channel is to make money. So, second, hire real sales organizations, get sales agencies. You can only do this if you do the first one because the content's currently literally valueless. Because it's just too small on an individual basis. And then you should also build compelling premium weekday content. Week number 6, no competitive structure and no capstone event. So we talked about this in the subjective rankings part, but in general, tournaments come, tournaments go. For viewers, it's like, is this really important? Is this a good jump-off point for me to watch Smash? Sure, there's stuff like Genesis and Big House and Evo, which people generally know is like more important. But it's not the same thing as the international, as Worlds. Even for communities that are frankly smaller than us, like QuakeCon or whatever, like iconic events where if you're not a part of that scene, you might just tune into, right? Maybe you don't watch football, but you'll watch the Super Bowl. Maybe you don't watch soccer, but you'll watch the World Cup. And similarly, I think these capstone events give people that opportunity, and also really helps build the competitive storyline because you're like, okay, who's the champ, right? Like, who really won this year, in more ways than just a subjective ranking, right? Or in more ways than just they won this tournament. I think it's a pretty big deal, and it doesn't mean that we have to make any events feel lesser or worse than others. As a result, it's just in general, other esports have this. And it's dope, and we don't. It's a weakness. Week number 7, small pool of full-time players. So this limits how many contributors we can have. And there's a reason for this. And, okay, so what is this chart? What did Blur just give me all these numbers for? So these numbers are the top earners in tennis, and then you start looking down the list and you realize, oh wow, they make way less money. So Federer makes $64 million in a year. I think that's what it's talking about. $64 million. That's a lot of money. And then someone who's ranked in the edge of the top 100 is making $392K. That's such a huge gap. Right, it feels like the real world where the rich, there's this massive income gap. So why am I bringing up tennis right now? The reason I am is because it's an individual sport, and if you actually map this out for every individual sport, you see a very similar thing. So the big guys get all the attention. In our case, the Mangos, the Hunger Boxes, the Zeros, or whatever, they get the deals, they get the sponsorships. but no one wants to sponsor number 176 best tennis player in the world, right? Like no one gives a shit. They just won't get the money. And in their case, so like they have a little small tournaments which they win and they win that money. But if you look on the right, they also spend a ton of money to get to the event, to get their coaching, to all this stuff. So in the end, these guys aren't really doing that well. Tennis is like a global sport with like it's so many hundreds of multiples bigger than what we do, and yet these guys are still not making that much money. So what hope do we have for people farther down the rankings to be able to make a living and to be full-time players? I think as long as we are a strictly individual sport, we're going to have this problem. Because frankly, like team sports, it's just easier to care about the 100th ranked player, right? Because if you're, in my case, I'm a Spurs fan, I genuinely care about Bryn Forbes, right? You guys might not know who he is, but he makes a ton of money playing for the Spurs. And the reason for that is because they need him to win, right? They need him. It's not just like one dude to do it, right? We have better players, but he's very relevant in terms of wins and losses. And so I think you need to build event formats like crews, for example. Maybe you have a crew league, so like literally like it becomes a whole staple of what we do. A global league for crews, for example, which shines light on players outside the very top. I don't think this problem ever gets solved unless we do things like this, by the way, because as long as we're in an individual sport, we're going to have a small pool of people getting all the money. And then you have to continue to build content around these people. The second part's a lot harder as long as people don't care about these people. But in a world, for example, where Mango's on the same team as Mike Hayes, right? They're on the same team. More people are going to care about Mike Hayes. That's a fact. It's just a fact, right? And the fans of that team or crew or whatever you want to call it are going to get around him and are going to cheer for him as a result. So, sure, we have regionalization. Sure, we have all these great things, but our structure, even if it grows, is going to mean a small pool of full-time players, right? I think even if we 10x, for the most part, our pool of full-time guys is not going to be that large, right? It's still not going to be that large. So ultimately, we have to go past being strictly individual, and thankfully, there's a format to do that, I think. So it's a very exciting one, too. So weakness number 8. So as you guys can tell, I'm 6. I'm getting tired. I was just like, fuck it. I'm not doing pictures anymore. I'm just going to run through 8, 9, 10 real quick. So weakness number 8. It is TO player dynamic is skewed in the player's favor. So you might say, Blur, that sounds like a good thing, right? Don't we want the players to hold TOs accountable? Like, isn't this an awesome thing that players have such a great voice? In so many ways, yes, absolutely. The open market stuff. But in so many ways, no. It's actually kind of terrible. So what does this mean? It's things like we saw with Wizard, right? There's a genuine stalling rule. But TOs are really afraid to enforce it because they want Wizrobe to keep going to their events. And because of the way the ecosystem is set up, Wizrobe can skip an event like GTX and not go to it next year. Or he can just not go to it, period, and just have a free weekend for himself. And it literally won't affect him at all. It'll only affect the event. And when large issues happen, I mean, we see, you guys read Levin's Twitter, for example, all the time. The players are out there tweeting, but the TO's tweets often don't get seen, and they don't really have a voice. So there's some exceptions to this, like me, for example, who has a larger Twitter and has some following. But most TOs just feel voiceless, and a lot of times, frankly, I've seen these situations where they're right, they are right, and the players are just being little biggity bitches, but they are ignored because their voice just doesn't go out there to that same capacity. So that sucks, and so it makes the TO super frightful of top players and super careful to not to offend them, but also some really bad TOs who are hurting the community will go and bend over backwards and do things like give appearance fees. Yes, they've happened. I don't like it, but they've happened. And maybe do flights, accommodations, all these things to try to entice players to go, right? Because you might say other esports always want top players to go to their events. This isn't a problem, but for us, um, be, it's it's specifically a problem because first of all, we don't have a lot of money, so we don't have money to cater people like this. But also, there's no reason to go to any one event, right? Like I was mentioning earlier, like they can just skip that weekend. So if Wizrow will lose in standing, like in tennis, right? Like if you just miss Wimbledon and you're Federer or you're Nadal or Djokovic or whoever, you lose a ton of points. There's a massive opportunity cost, right? So even if you're a little pissed at the Wimbledon organizers, like you'll still go, right? And you'll still do it. And so that ecosystem has a much healthier TO player dynamic, and there's more checks on the player's power, right? At this point, like it's cool in some ways that the players have power, but in so many ways it isn't. So weakness number 9. Events not attractive enough to those outside the niche. Again, this is one that is talked about a lot, so I don't want to dwell on it too much, but as you guys know, Smash can be unappealing to, maybe a woman, people who aren't gamers, your grandma, your grandpa. Like when it's not really a great family event where you could take them for 3 days and like hang out. It's quite. I would never bring my girlfriend, for example. She'd just be bored the whole time. So that's not good. And it's not good, especially of course with the various social controversies that we've had. That stuff sucks. But just in general, like the atmosphere, the things you're supposed to do at events, sometimes are just limited to here's a bunch of setups, go play some Smash Brothers matches, and that's all we got for you, right? Events are getting better at this one, and it's getting this one's getting mitigated a little bit. It is definitely getting better, but I think our events need to be more attractive to people who aren't just Smashers, and they need something to do. It needs to be fun. It needs to be fun. There's some events that do this better than others, but this one is particularly hard to solve at a local level, right? It'd be awesome if this gets solved at a local level. And going to locals is more fun than it is right now. But, yeah. Week number 10. Inconsistent production values across the board. Didn't put an S there, but production values. Yeah, this is pretty obvious. It's kind of related to the previous weakness. Maybe I phoned in this weakness. You could say that. But it's an obvious problem, right? Like we just saw GTX, just to put an example, they didn't have a crowd mic. Their audio was super tinny. Whoever was doing the audio for that does not know what they're doing. And there's just no consistent graphics package or production team that's behind it all. That we see through, production teams aren't able to iterate to get better and better with their production. Usually because most production teams only do a few events a year. And so there's less iteration, and so they can only learn so much. Like a lot of the standards that are necessary to grow Smash, they have a hard time meeting them. So yeah, so that our production can be better, and it's inconsistently bad for the most part. I'd like to see better. So as a summary, let me move on to, these are our strengths. Look at that list. What a beautiful list. And then here are the weaknesses. I think I split them out with the ones I did with 2 slides, but this is the overall stuff. So, okay, so what was the point of this entire exercise? What did we learn? What's the point? So I think the point for me is that even when Ultimate comes out, I feel like if I personally, in whatever capacity I can help Smash, and hopefully other community leaders and other people in the community start thinking about in what capacity can I help Smash and what can I do. I think if you're not amplifying one of those strengths I listed, or you're not helping fix or eliminate one of those weaknesses, you're honestly wasting your time, right? Like it's never a waste of time, I guess, to work on things in Smash, but these are the things that really matter, right? These are the things that are holding us back. right? We can't just keep doing the way you stagnate and decline as a community is when you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, hoping it will change. But these are really big problems, and I hope when we get all these new players, we don't forget about this stuff. And I'd love to hear feedback. I'd love to hear thoughts from other people about the list I made. There's probably stuff I left out, but on the whole, the optimistic viewpoint of all this, by the way, is that most of these are fixable. Most of the weaknesses, like I'd say, over time, we can mitigate the worst ones, and we can straight up eliminate like 6 or 7 of those 10 weaknesses. So let's bring up the weaknesses, right? The international presence is going to be always really difficult. Accessibility is always going to be really difficult. But pretty much the rest of them can be fixed, I think. Right? Like, if there was a unification of content, if we moved away from subjective ranking system, if we had a better way of players tracking their progress through point systems, if then we can do all this stuff that monetized tournament broadcasts, then I think we could do more things to make events attractive to people outside the niche because we're more unified. And we could potentially build a capstone. I think the player dynamic would get much better because then, you'd be fighting against a unified front of TOs. I also think that the key individuals would be more engaged and there'd be less of a brain drain. Obviously, that's always going to be a problem as long as we have less money. But it would be less. It'd be certainly less than what we have. And I think it would make the game more accessible in a way just because we'd be doing bigger and better things. So also, it'll make our international presence better because I think that we could use a larger platform to fix it. So I actually think that most of these weaknesses, if we break it down, they're fixable. They're fixable. And these strengths, by God, these are the best. If I could pick 10 strengths to have in esports, these would be the 10 I would pick. These are incredible strengths. These are the best strengths. We are a community built and operated by the community, for the community. Like it's really good, really good. The core of what we do is so sick, and it's why we get high praise from, like I showed that quote from Raina. And it's why if you're from Smash, like we get met really friendly. Like people really like us. It's because the core of what we do is awesome. We're just held back by our own shit. Like I really think that I've always had a really optimistic viewpoint for Smash because I think no other esports, like every esport, you can make this list, by the way. You make strengths and weaknesses or whatever, and you can do the same exercise. I think if you look at it, the weaknesses those guys have is far more damning than what we're dealing with. Like, okay, even in the international one's case, right? Western Europe, the U.S., Latin America, Japan, that's plenty of base to work off of, right? That's the stuff where it's relevant. Sure, we won't do China and India and whatever as well, but grow in those regions, get bigger, and then maybe you can start making more inroads, in the other regions. Do the doable regions first. So that's not even that bad. Like I think that's a fixable problem. Like if you're a cultural phenomenon, people will find it in other countries, especially if you're broadcasting those languages. So it's pretty bad. It's our worst one probably, but it's not terrible, right? What's Counter-Strike going to do with the fact that it has terrorists in this game? I don't know. Never get sponsors. I mean, they have some sponsors, but it's not the same, right? It's limited to endemic stuff. Like you'll never see a Hershey's come in. You'll never see Disney sponsor. Like it just won't happen, right? A lot of television companies won't even put it on air, right? And that's like what are they supposed to do about that, right? It's fundamentally what's in the game. Other esports with their watchability, with their cost of production, their cost of operations, like it's just such a. All they can do is throw more money at the problem to try to fix it. It's not good. I would much rather be in the position that we're in than in theirs. And I think that's why we've lasted so long, and that's why we're so successful. But I also think that we really need to start addressing the things holding us back. So, anyway, it's my video. I am quite parched, frankly, from all that talking. But and these meds are starting to wear off. If you guys couldn't tell near the end of the video, uh, but yeah, I really want to talk about stuff like this, and I hope this video catches on a little bit. I know I probably care about this stuff a little bit more than the average smasher who just wants to play their games, but we're all in this together. That's the thing to take away from Smash Brothers. Everyone can make an impact, and this game and community is too important, too awesome. It's something that, if you want to make the Blur mad, the easiest way to do it. Sometimes I hear the phrase, "Oh, is Smash even worth saving?" Whew, that boils me up. That boils me up. That boils me up when people say things like that. Or what's the point? Or when people take a negative mentality. It boils me up particularly because I lived in eras when Smash was genuinely small. Okay, we decreased like maybe 10% this year. And we know we're going to bounce back next year. Like, it's just going to happen. It's guaranteed to happen. Our calendar's even, I think there's going to be good things, right? But I still, we're still in a very good spot, and we're a very healthy community on the whole. 10% is not that big a deal, right? It's frankly not. In terms of viewership attendance, like it's varies from different tournaments. I really don't think our declines more than like 15%. It's not that bad on a relative sense. But there was a time where we were like 10x smaller, and more than 10x. It was like 100x smaller, right? We were so much smaller, and I had to constantly hear people harping on our weaknesses, and constantly hear people say there's no point, and Smash is just too niche, and it's an old game, and we're never gonna be able to do anything. And it's that sort of mentality where people don't feel empowered and don't feel like they're really able to make a difference, and they see the weaknesses and not the strengths, that I think stops us, right? We need to have the energy to make that difference. And I, most of all, like, one of the reasons I want to make this video is like, it sucks for me because I spent a lot of this year working on non-Smash Brothers stuff. It hurts to see the community decline when and I feel like I'm not out in the field trying to make a difference. It sucks. As much of a difference. I still did a bunch of Smash things, but not as much of a difference as I could have made, right? And at the very least, whatever happens with me, I want to pass as much of my knowledge down, because as long as there's that high turnover rate, right, it feels like a lot of these same problems people are relearning and trying to figure out for themselves over and over again. It's frustrating, right? Where these solved problems that someone else solved, the knowledge sometimes doesn't get passed down. We live in a culture, in a community which is like, it's like an old Native American community, like where songs are passed down and knowledge is passed down through oral history. But a lot of this stuff isn't documented and known. This video, like, this is a lot of my knowledge that I've gained over decade plus, right? Like of being in the scene, and maybe I didn't get everything right in terms of strengths and weaknesses. Maybe I left something out, but for future generations, I think these are things that are going to stick around in our scene. Those strengths, I hope we keep them forever, and those weaknesses, I hope we do something about them, and we make them better. But if they're still there, do something about it, because it hurts. It sucks. And we could do better. We could do way better. And better's good. Better's awesome. So, yeah. So I'm bleeding heart right now, man. I want Smash to get bigger, man. So badly. So freaking badly, man. It's just such a great community. I love it. It's met so many great people. Smashers, man, we deserve to rise up. Rise up, gamers, right? I have a lot of hope, and I have a lot of optimism, and I'm seeing a lot of good signs. I see the new generation, and it gives me hope. Guys like Ludwig, they literally give me hope. Guys like Slime give me hope. Events like the Roast, for example, give me hope. People, that you might not have heard of, which I'm seeing crop up in local regions and really doing good work, they give me hope. I was talking about Aiden earlier. That guy gives me hope. So much hope. It's important. And if your TO has been around for a while, please mentor someone too. And when Ultimate comes out, make sure to take those kids on your. Try to retain as many as you can. Retain as many as you can. And yeah, so. All right. Well, it's been a long enough video as it is. I know this was an extensive topic. Hopefully, it was informative to some people. But yeah. This is Blur signing out. I'll probably take a break right now and then maybe record some more videos. But love you all. Until next time.